Welcome back to my YouTube channel, everyone, and thank you so much for joining today's incredible deep dive into the fascinating world of rare and valuable coins, where we uncover the secrets behind everyday change that most people overlook but that can sometimes turn into treasures worth millions. And in this episode we are going to explore the amazing story of the 2004 D. Lincoln 1-cent coin. A coin that looks just like any other penny you might find in your pocket or in a jar of coins at home, yet under certain conditions with specific errors, mistakes, and anomalies this very coin has been valued as high as $5 million, and when people hear that a simple penny from 2004 struck at the Denver Mint could be worth that much, their first reaction is disbelief, because billions of pennies are produced every year and they all look alike. But the world of coin collecting thrives on the exceptions, on the rare minting errors, on the unique anomalies, and on those 1 in a billion cases where a coin turns out to be something entirely different from the ordinary. So today we are going to dive into every possibility that makes the 2004 D cent so incredibly valuable, breaking down the types of errors that could exist, the role condition plays, the importance of rarity, and the fascinating history of how minting processes sometimes slip up and create legendary coins. And to start, let's set the background. In 2004 the Lincoln cent was part of the Lincoln Memorial Reverse series, which had been used since 1959, and the obverse still bore the classic portrait of Abraham Lincoln introduced in 1909, while the reverse displayed the Lincoln Memorial, and at this time cents were struck on copper-plated zinc planchets weighing 2.5 grams, having shifted from the heavier copper composition in 1982, and the Denver Mint, identified by the D Mint mark, struck hundreds of millions of these coins in 2004, but as history proves, no minting process is perfect, and despite quality controls, errors always find a way to slip into circulation, and these errors are the lifeblood of collectors because they turn a coin worth 1 cent into a discovery worth thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions, and in the case of the 2004 D cent some of these errors have elevated it to legendary status. So let's go through them one by one in detail, beginning with doubled dies, which are among the most famous errors in numismatic history, because when a working die is improperly hubbed with misalignment, the design elements end up doubled, and coins struck with that die show clear doubling on letters, numbers, or features, and dramatic doubling can appear on the date, the word liberty, or the motto "In God We Trust" on the obverse, or even in the lines and pillars of the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, and collectors go crazy for these because they are so visibly distinct. And while minor doubling may add only small premiums, dramatic examples in pristine mint state can reach staggering values, and it is entirely plausible that a 2004 D double die cent graded at MS-68 or MS-69 by PCGS or NGC could reach multi-million-dollar prices if it is unique or the finest known. And then we must consider off-center strikes, another spectacular error that occurs when the planchet is not properly seated in the striking chamber, resulting in a coin with a blank crescent where the design did not strike, and the more dramatic the off-center strike the more desirable, especially if the date and mint mark remain visible, because that combination proves authenticity and makes it easier to identify, and off-center strikes ranging from 50% to 75% with full details are especially rare, and such a 2004 D cent in perfect uncirculated condition could also command astronomical value. Then there are broad strikes, which happen when the collar that normally holds the planchet in place fails, allowing the coin to expand outward when struck, leaving it thinner and wider than normal, and these are instantly recognizable to collectors, and when tied to a specific year like 2004 they can become highly sought after. Next we must discuss clipped planchets, because when blanks are cut from the sheets of metal at the mint, sometimes they overlap the edge or overlap another blank, resulting in coins that are missing a portion of their metal, leaving curved or straight edge clips. And these can be minor but sometimes dramatic, and when dramatic and combined with other anomalies they create a unique and very collectible piece. But perhaps the most valuable errors of all come from off-metal strikes, also called transitional or wrong planchet errors, where a coin is struck on a blank intended for a different denomination or even for a foreign coin, and given that the U.S. Mint produces coinage for other nations as well, it is entirely possible for a 2004 D cent to have been struck accidentally on a dime planchet, a nickel planchet, or even a foreign planchet of bronze, silver, or other alloy, and such off-metal strikes are some of the rarest coins in existence, often valued in the hundreds of thousands or millions, and when you combine that with the prestige of being the only known example from a modern year like 2004, you can see how quickly the value could soar to $5 million or more. And we must also not forget die cracks, cuts, and breaks. Because dies used to strike coins endure immense pressure and wear down, eventually cracking or chipping, and when they do, the coins struck show raised lines, blobs of metal, or entire missing areas of design known as cuds, and collectors find these fascinating because each one is unique, and some 2004D cents are known to have spectacular die cracks running across Lincoln's profile or through the Lincoln Memorial, and the larger and more dramatic the cut, the more it stands out, and value rises accordingly. And then there are repunched mint marks, and while by 2004 mint marks were added during the die-making process rather than by hand as in earlier decades, anomalies still occur, and doubled or distorted mint marks can be highly collectible, and this again adds to the uniqueness factor, and uniqueness is everything when it comes to rare coins because collectors are not just chasing metal, they are chasing history, rarity, and stories that no one else can duplicate, but condition also plays a vital role, because a coin can have the rarest error in the world but if it is scratched, worn, or damaged, its value is severely reduced, but when an error coin survives in nearly flawless condition, graded MS68, MS69, or even the almost impossible MS70, it becomes irresistible to collectors who chase perfection, and wealthy buyers will bid millions to own what they see as the pinnacle of their collection, and this is how a coin like the 2004D cent can go from face value to $5 million, because it combines rarity, uniqueness, and flawless preservation, and beyond all of this we must consider the role of provenance and auction history, because when a coin is discovered, authenticated, and sold at a high-profile auction, its fame grows, and that fame alone adds to its value, because now it is not only rare but also a piece of numismatic history that collectors recognize and desire, and wealthy buyers often see such coins as trophies, symbols of achievement, and investments in tangible history, and so when you put together the possibilities of doubled dies, off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, off-metal errors, die breaks, mint mark anomalies, pristine condition, and famous provenance, you have the perfect storm that explains how the 2004D cent could be valued at $5 million, and now think about the thrill of discovery for an ordinary person who finds such a coin, maybe in loose change, maybe in a forgotten jar, maybe inherited from a relative, the realization that a coin worth 1 cent could instead buy a mansion is what keeps this hobby so exciting, because the next great discovery could be anywhere, and the story of the 2004D cent is a reminder that imperfection is what makes perfection in the world of coins, because those tiny mistakes and accidents are what transform an ordinary penny into a priceless artifact, and as collectors and enthusiasts we are reminded to look closely at every coin we encounter, to check for doubling, misalignments, unusual weights, strange edges, cracks, or anything out of the ordinary, because history proves again and again that these treasures are out there waiting to be found, and the 2004D cent worth $5 million is living proof that even in modern times coins with spectacular errors can slip through and later shock the world, so the lesson here is never to underestimate the humble penny, because within its small copper-plated surface could lie the key to fortune. And as we close this exploration, remember that the story of the 2004D cent is not just about money, it is about history, rarity, discovery, and the incredible thrill of finding the extraordinary within the ordinary, and perhaps right now another one of these legendary error coins is waiting in circulation, so keep searching, keep learning, and keep your eyes open, because the next life-changing discovery might be in your hands at this very moment. Last 1984 1 cent coin, everyone, and thank you so much for joining today's exciting deep dive into the fascinating world of coin collecting, where small pieces of metal we use in our daily lives can turn out to be worth fortunes, and in this episode we are going to explore in detail the incredible story of the 1984 Lincoln 1 cent coin. A coin that in most cases is worth exactly 1 cent, but under extraordinary circumstances with the right combination of minting errors, rare mistakes, and impeccable condition it has been valued at up to $4 million, and that is what makes this story so captivating, because the idea that an ordinary penny from the year 1984 could sell for millions captures the imagination of collectors, treasure hunters, and ordinary people alike. So today we will break down the specific reasons, errors, possibilities, and circumstances that transformed this humble coin into a piece of numismatic history. And before we get into the unique errors of the 1984 cent, let us first establish the background of the coin itself. In 1984, the United States Mint was producing Lincoln cents with the Lincoln Memorial design on the reverse, which had been in place since 1959 to honor the 150th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, and the obverse carried the iconic profile of Lincoln, first created by Victor David Brenner in 1909. And since 1982, the composition of the penny had shifted from 95% copper to copper-plated zinc, weighing 2.5 grams, with only a thin copper coating around a zinc core, which makes coins from this era vulnerable to corrosion and spotting. And yet, despite the billions of pennies struck in 1984, there were those rare instances where something went wrong at the mint, and those mistakes, when paired with rarity and condition, became incredibly valuable. Now, one of the most famous and desirable errors of the 1984 Lincoln cent is the double die obverse variety, sometimes referred to as the 1984 double-ear cent, because on this coin you can see an extra earlobe beneath Lincoln's primary ear, a clear doubling that is not only visible to the naked eye but also so distinct that collectors immediately recognize it. And this variety has been widely documented and pursued by enthusiasts because it is a textbook example of how hub doubling during the die-making process can create unique features on coins. And while many of these doubled-ear cents sell for hundreds or thousands depending on grade, the absolute finest known examples in pristine mint state red condition with perfect luster and minimal marks can escalate in price dramatically, and in certain circumstances where the coin is the single highest graded example or has extraordinary provenance, it is entirely plausible for the value to reach millions. And this is where the $4 million story of the 1984 cent begins, because condition is king in numismatics. And if a coin with a famous variety such as the doubled ear also happens to be preserved in a flawless state graded MS69 red or even the nearly impossible MS70, it would be virtually unique, and collectors with deep pockets will compete furiously for the privilege of owning it, driving prices into the millions. But the doubled ear is not the only error that makes 1984 cents valuable, because we also have to consider off-center strikes, which occur when the coin blank is not seated properly in the striking chamber, resulting in coins where part of the design is missing and part of the planchet remains blank. And dramatic off-center strikes, particularly those over 50% yet still showing the date and mint mark, are extremely desirable. And when combined with the 1984 year, which already has collector interest due to the doubled ear variety, such an error coin could be a one-of-a-kind treasure worth staggering sums. And then there are broad strikes, which occur when the retaining collar fails during striking, allowing the planchet to expand outward and creating a coin that is flatter and wider than normal with missing rim details. And these errors too are collected and can be highly valuable, especially in uncirculated condition. And of course there are clipped planchets, where during the blanking process a punch overlaps an edge of the metal sheet or another blank, resulting in a coin that has a curved or straight clipped area. And such dramatic clips, especially double or triple clips, on a 1984 cent could easily become the centerpiece of a major collection. And then we cannot overlook transitional or off-metal strikes, which are among the most valuable error coins ever discovered, because they occur when a coin is accidentally struck on a planchet meant for another denomination or even for a foreign coin. And since the U.S. Mint produces coinage for other nations, this has happened multiple times in history, leading to spectacular rarities. So imagine a 1984 cent struck on a dime planchet, a nickel planchet, or even on a copper alloy leftover from pre-1982 blanks. These would not only be historically fascinating but also so rare that their values could skyrocket into the millions. And examples like the 1943 copper cent or the 1974 aluminum cent prove how wildly valuable off-metal strikes can be. Then we have die cracks and cuts, which occur when dies develop breaks or chips and transfer those flaws onto the coins they strike, leaving raised lines, extra blobs of metal, or entire missing sections of design. And while many die cracks are minor, some are spectacular, and when combined with collector interest in the 1984 series, large and dramatic cuts could become highly valuable. And next we should consider strike-through errors, where a foreign object such as grease, wire, or cloth becomes lodged between the die and the planchet during striking, leaving a distinct impression on the coin. And dramatic strike-throughs create one-of-a-kind pieces because no two are alike, making them highly collectible. And when you combine this uniqueness with the historical importance of 1984's doubled ear variety, you get an irresistible combination, and we must also remember repunched mint marks, although by 1984 mint marks were generally applied during the die-making process rather than individually, anomalies still occur, and strange distortions or doubling of the D or S mint marks from this year could add another layer of collectability, and now beyond the errors themselves the true driver of astronomical value is condition. Because most 1984 cents circulated heavily, suffered zinc rot, or developed spotting and corrosion, so finding one in blazing red mint state with no marks is incredibly difficult, and those few coins that survive in the top population census of grading services such as PCGS or NGC become the elite. And when paired with a famous error like the doubled ear or an extreme off-metal strike, their value leaps from thousands to millions, and provenance also plays a role because when a coin is discovered and sold at a major auction like Heritage or Stack's Bowers, it gains fame and recognition, and future buyers are willing to pay a premium just for the prestige of owning a coin with history, and this is how values can leap far beyond their intrinsic worth, because wealthy collectors view such coins not only as treasures but also as trophies, investments, and symbols of status. And this is why a 1984 cent with the right combination of error, condition, rarity, and provenance can realistically be valued at $4 million, and when you think about it the story is extraordinary because pennies are so ordinary, so overlooked, so common, yet hidden among them could be life-changing discoveries, and for the average person who finds a 1984 doubled ear cent in change or tucked away in a collection, the idea that it could be worth a fortune is thrilling. And that is what drives the passion of numismatics, the constant possibility that the next incredible coin is just waiting to be discovered. And when we zoom out and think about the broader lesson the 1984 cent teaches us, it is that perfection is not what collectors chase, rather it is imperfection in the form of mint errors that creates uniqueness, history, and ultimately value. So as we close this deep dive, remember to always check your coins carefully, examine dates, mint marks, details like Lincoln's ear, the clarity of lettering, the sharpness of the strike, the presence of unusual shapes, doubling, cracks, or off-center features, because hidden in those tiny details could be the difference between a coin worth a cent and a coin worth millions, and perhaps right now, somewhere out there, another 1984 cent with spectacular errors is waiting to be discovered, ready to shock the world and change someone's life forever. So never underestimate the humble penny, because in 1984 it proved that even the smallest coin can carry the weight of fortune, history, and legend in the palm of your